Hey everybody, this is Tracy, and we're here to recap episode 12 of Queen Sugar, which was entitled For Too Long. So the show opens up, and we have Nova, and she's walking through her house, and she has this Louisville slugger, across her shoulder, like she's about to go bash somebody's head in. And so we hear glass breaking in the background, and we realize that it is Too Sweet, and he's having a really bad nightmare, and he's falling out of the bed, and he's kicking and flailing his arms all around. And so Nova, she wakes him up, and he lets her know that he was having a really bad nightmare, and that he was dreaming about returning to prison, and when he was being beat up, and he doesn't want to go back to jail. And so Nova, lets him know that she's there and everything is going to be okay. So we move on to Ralph Angel, and he's created a workspace in the house. And so he has his desk, and he's sitting there, with his cup of coffee, and he has papers sprawled out all across the desk, like he's a real businessman. And so he's trying to call Charley, and Charley's not answering the phone. And then we have Hollywood, and he's back in town, and he's on the phone with somebody because the quickie divorce that him and Leanne were trying to get isn't going as well as he thought. And so I guess his goal was to have the divorce finalized before he let Aunt Vi know he was back. It was going to be a surprise or something. So I guess in TV land, you can get a divorce in a couple of weeks. So anyway, Ralph Angel lets him know to just be patient, that everything's going to work out. And so in the meantime, while Charley isn't answering his phone calls, we find out that Charley is actually with Remy, and that the two of them are touring a mill that is up for sale. So this week, Charley's plan is that she is going to buy a mill for $9 million with the help of the guy that owns the Stinger basketball team, and that she is going to grind her own sugar cane and that of the other farmers in the area, plus offer them better pricing. And so Remy, he lets her know that many people have went up against Goliath, meaning the Landrys, and have lost, and that Charley really needs to focus her attention on farming and getting that crop cut down and grind up at a mill, or she's going to lose everything, But Charley's determined that she can do all this in the time that they need and also produce a good crop. And so, Remy says, okay, whatever you need me to do. So Charley agrees, to go on a date with him in exchange for him getting the farmers together for one of those potluck meals. And so they declare a truce, and then the scene ends with them in a passionate kiss. So we move over to Micah, and Micah is walking Kiki home from school, and I guess Micah still isn't in school himself. And so I thought when Charley was negotiating with the basketball team owner that it was to get Micah into that private school, but looked like she has bigger fish to fry and has forgotten about her son. So Kiki wants Micah to come over to her house and meet her dad. And so Micah is like, well, Boogie's your dad, and I've already met him. So Kiki tells him, in the South, they do things a little differently, and that if you're interested in dating somebody's daughter in the black family, at least, you need to come over and formally be introduced to the parents and ask their permission, to date their daughter. So, Micah's like, okay. So then Kiki, asks him, has he talked to his father? Which Micah says, no, I haven't talked to my dad, and I don't want to talk to my dad. So Kiki's letting him know that, what happened between Charley and Davis isn't about Micah, that's grown folks' business, and that he should, want to have a relationship with his dad. But Micah, he's like, well, that hurt me too, and I think it's my problem just as much as it's their problem. And so, Kiki doesn't want to argue with him. She says what she has to say, and then she tells him, she understands. So she lets Micah know she needs to get home and study for the SAT, because she needs to get her calculus down right. And so Micah tells her that he can help her study, but Kiki's like, boy, you ain't been in nobody's classroom for months. No, you can't help me study. I'm going to do this on my own. And then they too, have a little passionate kissing going on. So I guess like mother, like son. So Nova and Ralph Angel, they're together and they're trying to call Charley. And, Ralph Angel has explained to Nova that Charley won't answer his phone calls, but he has a really great plan, to get the trucks that they need and to get the crops transported to the to the other mill that they were going to use that's on the other side of Louisiana. So of course, you know, Charley answers the phone when Nova calls, which makes Ralph Angel feel even worse about the whole situation. And so we see that Charley is, I guess she's waiting to meet with the owner of the Stingers, because she's like in their lobby. She's in a room and there's like a big logo on the back wall. So they, you know, they try to explain to Charley, you know, what Ralph Angel's plan is, but Charley pretty much cuts them off, let them know that she has everything under control and for them to sit tight and not do anything, you know, until she gets back or gets with them and tells them what, you know, direction they're going to go in. And so of course, you know, Ralph Angel, he's all in his feelings because, you know, Charley won't listen to his ideas, but Nova lets him know that she's proud of him and she, you know, thinks that what he's come up with is a great plan, and that as soon as they talk to Charley, you know, Charley will see that, you know, it's a good idea as well. So Charley and the owner of the Stingers, and I think his name is Frank, so they're meeting, and, you know, she's trying to negotiate her ass off, you know, trying to tell him to consider meeting with Davis and the other player named Felix. And so the guy, you know, he's kind of like questioning Charley as to whether or not she even has the ability to negotiate for Davis, and can she make any decisions. And so he's kind of like, he wants Davis and Felix together, but he doesn't think he can get Davis, or he can't afford Davis. And that Felix has pretty much, he's going to have a meeting with Felix in the next day or so, but he thought that Davis and Felix were going to sign with the team in New York. So now, you know, Charley has one more white man. She needs to prove that, you know, she's a businesswoman and she can get things done. So she excuses herself from that meeting, you know, because she tells him that, you know, she has to go and prove him wrong. So Darla walks in and she, you know, she sees Ralph Angel and he's looking down, and, you know, she asks him what's wrong. So then he starts going off on Charley, you know, he's angry that Charley gets to make all the decisions and he has ideas and he wishes somebody would listen to him. And, you know, Ralph Angel obviously doesn't understand that, you know, he can have all the ideas he wants, but if he ain't got no money to bring those ideas to fruition, he kind of is at the mercy of Charley, who's the only one that seems to have money in the bank account. So, you know, Darla, you know, she feeds into this and, you know, starts pumping him up and telling him that, you know, he does all the work and his dad would be so proud of him and she's proud of him, and that, you know, everything is going to work out, and, you know, he just needs to be patient, but, you know, she has all the confidence in him. And so then, you know, she gives him a kiss. So, you know, there's a whole lot of sugar being passed around on Queen Sugar in this episode. And so we just want to let Miss Darla know we see you and we know what you up to, girl. So after Charley leaves Frank at the Stingers headquarters, she calls Lena, who is Felix's wife, you know, lets her know that she heard that they were in town for a meeting, you know, with the Stingers. And so, you know, Lena, when the phone was ringing, she was looking at it like, oh my God, you know, like Charley was the last person she wanted to talk to. But she goes ahead and she answers the phone, you know, and she lets Charley know that they were leaving that next morning, you know, so they wouldn't be able to get together. But Charley said, we're going to meet tonight, you know, so she schedules to have dinner with Lena. And Lena, for whatever reason, doesn't know how to say no to Charley, because I'm thinking if I didn't want to be bothered with Charley, I wouldn't even answer that telephone. But since she did, she's kind of like on the spot. So then later on, we see them at dinner, and they're, you know, chatting and catching up. And so Lena, you know, she kind of says, you know, Charley, I wish you would have given Davis another chance. And is there any kind of way you guys can work it out? And so Charley's phone rings, and it's Remy, and she remembers that her and Remy were supposed to have been going to dinner, and that she stood him up. So she excuses herself from the table, and she goes, you know, to talk to Remy and apologize, you know. And so then Remy hears the background noise, and he's like, wait a minute, did you stand me up and still went out to dinner? And then Charley's like, you know, she'll make it up to him. So when she gets back at that table, Charley like turned into a different person, because she basically told Lena that she needed Lena to convince Felix not to sign with any other team, that he needed to sign with the Stingers, and that if she didn't do it, that she was going to release the videotape. Remember when they were doing the settlement with the prostitute and they were recording the conversation, where she threatened to release that videotape so that the world could know that Felix actually raped that woman, and pretty much told Lena that once she does that, that she too would find out that fairy tales don't always come true. And I was just like, oh my God, Charley, like, you are turning into a beast, girl. But we seeing a whole new you tonight, girl. It's the next day, and Aunt Vi shows up at Ralph Angel's house, and she has a pan of some macaroni and cheese, which is Hollywood's favorite dish. And for some reason, Ralph Angel brings it upon himself to tell Aunt Vi that Hollywood has been back in town for almost a week. So of course this upsets Aunt Vi, you know, that her man been back in town and hasn't called her. So then Ralph Angel calls Hollywood into the room. So when Hollywood comes in, you know, Aunt Vi's like, is it true that you've been back all this time and haven't called me? And so, you know, Hollywood is trying to explain, but Aunt Vi don't want to hear it. She runs out the house and she throws the macaroni and cheese into the garbage can. And so, you know, Hollywood is trying to chase after her. You know, they explain to her what was going on, but, you know, she doesn't want to hear it. So she jumps in her car and she drives off. And then, you know, Ralph Angel comes outside, and I'm just sitting there like, that was so messy of Ralph Angel, and there's really nothing that he can say to Hollywood that would make him feel better or make him understand, you know, what's going on. And so then, you know, Ralph Angel go tell Hollywood, well, look like you need to come up with a better plan, bro, if you're going to get Aunt Vi back. And I'm just like, messy, messy, messy. So then we have Aunt Vi, you know, she's at the diner and she's getting on Roberta. So I was happy to see that Roberta was back, because last episode I thought maybe Roberta had gotten fired because she wasn't at that grand opening party that they had. But so Roberta's trying to convince Aunt Vi, you know, they need to go out, you know, so she can get her mind off of Hollywood. And, you know, Aunt Vi, I noticed since she became the manager of that diner, you know, she's been dressing real nice. So you go ahead on, Miss Vi. So while, you know, she's telling Roberta she's not going out with her, this guy comes in and he's delivering some liquor or something. And so he overhears them talking, and he, you know, tells Roberta that him and his friends are going to be at this club, also, that him and his friend are going to be at the same club that she's trying to get Aunt Vi to go to. So then Roberta says that's selling, you know, they're going. So, you know, Aunt Vi is going to the club whether she likes it or not. And she would be going with Miss Roberta. So that should be a really fun time, because we know Roberta likes to have a good time. So I guess, you know, Darla has moved in with Ralph Angel because she, you know, has been there the entire episode. And so he tells Hollywood that, you know, things between him and Darla are going really good. But I'm thinking not good enough, because Boogie showed up and told them that they were going to the club. And Ralph Angel had no problem letting Darla know that she would be staying with Blue because the boys were going out. So I'm thinking love keeps you at home. And if he really cared about Darla, he would have told them, no, y'all going to the club, but I'm going to stay here with my family. But that didn't happen. So, of course, you know, when they get to the club, they walk in just as Aunt Vi, you know, goes out on the dance floor with the delivery guy. And so they're just dancing and swerving, and he rubbing all on Aunt Vi's thighs and everything. And Hollywood is not a happy camper. And so he's about to storm onto the dance floor and confront them. But then, you know, Ralph Angel tells him, no, don't do that. And so then, you know, Hollywood, you know, he's all in his feelings. So he storms out of the club, and then Ralph Angel storms out behind him. And then, of course, you know, it would be fitting that once they leave, that Aunt Vi, you know, decides that she's ready to leave also. But more interesting was the fact that it was just a little hole in the wall juke joint, but nobody saw anybody else, you know, come into the club or leave the club. So next we have Nova, and she goes to meet with the public defender under the guise that she's doing like a special interest story on their public defender's office. But of course we know she's there to get information on Too Sweet's case. But the guy lets her know that he doesn't know who Too Sweet is, doesn't know, you know, by his government name, and that until he gets to Too Sweet's case, you know, he's really not concerned with who Too Sweet is. And so we pan around the his office, and this man has files up to here. And so he comes from behind his desk, and Nova is surprised to find out that he's actually in a wheelchair. And so, you know, she's telling him, you know, well, do you think that's fair that, you know, he's being treated this way? And the guy's like, well, whether it's fair or not, you know, it's the way it is, and I'm just overwhelmed, and, you know, it'll probably be a couple of years before, you know, he gets to Too Sweet's case. And So when we see Nova again, it is the day that she's going to be on Melissa Harris Perry's talk show. And so, Nova did really good. And, she was talking about advocacy, Black Lives Matter, and for-profit prisons. And then she talks about Too Sweet and a few other things. So she didn't need Chantal, to give her talking points or tell her how to answer the questions, because she did fairly well on her own. And so, as the camera pans out into the audience, we see that Calvin is there. And so when Melissa Harris Perry asked Nova a question about over policing, Nova kind of schmoozes up and she gives a really good response that kind of leaves her in the gray area. So she's like supportive of the Black Lives Matter movement, but then on the same hand, she's saying that not all police officers are bad. So, Calvin seemed to be happy with her response, because later on in the show, he calls her, and he lets her know that he has gotten the charges against Too Sweet dropped. And he also lets Nova that he wants to see her, but Nova lets him know she doesn't want to do the whole mistress thing anymore. And then Calvin drops a bomb and lets us know that he left his wife. Now, I don't know if he left his wife for Nova or if his wife left him because she found out about Nova. But anyway, looks like Calvin and Nova are going to be reunited. Oh, and one more thing about Nova. I thought Nova looked really beautiful on that set. And whoever did the wardrobe and the makeup for this episode, they did a phenomenal job, because Nova was glowing up there in her white and just the little splashes of color. She just really looked gorgeous, and her hair was beautiful and everything. So that was a good look, Miss Nova. So back at the house, at Aunt Violet's house, we have Micah, and he's there with Kiki and some of her friends. And they, he's helping them study. They're doing like a little study group. So Charley walks in, and she is not happy to see that Micah is entertaining company. So the kids, they're really impressed with Charley, and the girls, they're acting like, she's a superstar or something. And I think with after Micah introduced them to everybody, that one of the girls said something like, "I love you," so they was making fun of her. So Charley goes into her bedroom and she calls Davis. And she tells Davis that he needs to come to Louisiana, come to St. Joe's, because Micah is acting out and he has fallen in with the wrong crowd. And I just was like, Charley, how in the world could you do that? So I don't know if she just said it to get Davis to come to Louisiana, or if she really doesn't want Micah hanging with Kiki and the other kids. Does she really think that these kids are a bad influence on him? And so we done seen Charley just get downright dirty and nasty in this episode. And I don't know if I like this part of her. I'm kind of afraid of Charley, because she was just mean-spirited. But I just think that was a low blow when she said that, he was hanging out with the wrong kids, because them kids seem like they are smart, they are into school, and they plan on doing great things with their lives. So back at Ralph Angel's, we have Hollywood, and he's packing his bags, and he's decided to leave St. Josephine's. He says that losing Vi was just too much, and he's looking at Ralph Angel and Darla, and their relationship seems to be blossoming, and so he doesn't want to be around love, when he doesn't have any love. So he's going to move to Baton Rouge and go get some work on the rigs and find him an apartment over there, because there's no point in him coming back. And so, Hollywood and Ralph Angel, they say their goodbyes. And, Ralph Angel was telling him to go tell Aunt Vi that he was leaving. But Hollywood said he's not going to let her go. He's just going to go. So that was kind of a sad moment. But it was nice, to see the male bonding going on. And so, you all know I don't like Darla. But, I'm really trying. But I know that heifer, has her sights on that money that she thinks Ralph Angel is going to make. But he's all in love and goo-goo-eyed with Darla, and he's kind of listening to some of the things that Hollywood is saying. So he goes back in, and, Darla asks him if everything is okay, and he says yeah, and then she says she's going to leave, but, he tells her no, that she can stay. And so, they I think they kissed, and then, Ralph Angel ended up leading her into the bedroom. And I'm just praying like, Lord, please don't let him get this girl pregnant, because he's going to have enough trouble if the crops come in and Darla be trying to get her share of that money. But if he doesn't get her pregnant again, he's just going to be stuck with Darla. And I don't know how that's going to work out. But anyway, moving on. So speaking of the crops, and getting them harvested, I thought like a week ago they were saying that they really needed to get everything cut and shipped because, the sugar cane was going to lose its potency or whatever it is that is measured by to make it a good crop. But I'm thinking like, how is Charley, going to buy a mill, close on the mill, get everything up and running and still have time to get this crop harvest? Because it seems like there's a whole lot of time that's passing by. And do they even have workers? Because then a couple of episodes ago, remember, after the guys were killed, then the other guys didn't come back, so they were looking for workers. So I don't know, y'all losing me with this writing, because it seems to me like if it was really a urgency to get the crops cut, they don't have time to do all this stuff that Charley's going to do and save the sugar cane. But once again, we're in TV land, so we're just gonna roll with it and see how it goes. So anyway, that was it. We have one more episode left, and poor Micah still isn't in school, and I don't think Charley even remembers her goal of getting him into school, because she, like I said earlier, she's going out on a tangent and she's buying meals and blackmailing people and all kind of craziness. But I think at the end, I was watching one of the little clips on the OWN app, and Ava DuVernay was talking about the director for this week's episode, and it's a lady named Tina Mowbray. And so I just want to say that she did a really great job, and she's also going to direct the episode, the season finale episode. And Ava was also saying that I guess she's directed other films, but this is her first time doing a television show. So once again, kudos and congratulations to Tina Mowbray on a job well done. So on Twitter, people were going off about Charley saying, Micah's hanging with a bad crowd. And, you can tell from my reaction that I was kind of offended too. So my question for this week's episode is, what do you think about Charley after watching her in action? Is she going too far and doing too much to get what she wants? So leave your comments below and check out some of my other reviews for Insecure, Married to Medicine, Sweetie Pies, and Real Housewives of Atlanta. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. Peace and blessings. Bye-bye.